Donald Trump just said there, saying he thinks ships should pass through, despite the fact they...
I think, well, first off, I think the Straits of Hormuz is going to be dangerous because of what the Iranians are doing right now.
It has been war game before. You're absolutely right. It was clear that the Iranians would try to cut off the flow of oil.
At 0340 local time, a Schedule 2 ballistic missile leaves its transporter erector launcher in the Alborz Mountains, climbing past 60,000 feet on a trajectory that puts it over the Strait of Hormuz in under 11 minutes. It is not alone. 17 more follow in the next 90 seconds. Iran's Supreme National Security Council declared total victory at 0200. The launches started at 0340. The gap between those two events is the entire story. 6 weeks earlier, Iranian state media ran footage of a press conference. The commander of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps Aerospace Force stood at a podium and announced that the latest American carrier strike group, centered on the USS Gerald R, had been successfully deterred from entering the Persian Gulf. The Ford Group was operating 280 nautical miles to the southeast, in international waters off the coast of Oman. The IRGC framed this as a strategic retreat. Every channel in Tehran ran the clip on a loop. The victory graphic had already been designed before the press conference ended. They had the fonts picked out. What the IRGC did not say at that press conference was that the Ford Group had not stopped moving. 300 nautical miles to the southeast, the USS Gerald R Ford was turning into the wind. The Gerald R Ford is the most expensive warship ever built. 100,000 tons of nuclear-powered American real estate, carrying roughly 70 fixed-wing aircraft and roughly 9,000 sailors, officers and aircrew. The ship alone cost $13 billion. The full carrier strike group, escorts, submarines, logistics vessels, represents somewhere above $30 billion of American defense spending floating in a very specific patch of ocean. The IRGC had announced its deterrence. The Ford Group had responded by launching 24 strike sorties in the previous 18 hours without a single public statement. Iran declared victory. The carrier printed a flight schedule. Back in the Alborz Mountains, the Schedule 2 launch sequence is running. The Schedule 2 is a two-stage solid-fuel ballistic missile, range of approximately 2,000 kilometers, meaning it can reach anywhere in the Gulf theater without repositioning the launcher. Solid fuel is the detail that matters. Liquid fuel missiles require hours of hazardous fueling before launch, a window where satellite imagery can catch the preparation and tip off a strike. The Schedule 2 sits ready to fire without any of that. No fueling trucks. No visible preparation. No warning window. Off a transporter erector launcher on a mountain road, in the dark, in under 2 minutes. 18 missiles, 90 seconds. All of them climbing. What the launch crews in the mountains did not know was that the Ford Group's Ticonderoga-class guided missile cruiser USS Chosin, operating 60 nautical miles south of the Strait, had been watching the Schedule launchers warm up for 11 minutes. The Chosin SPY-1 radar is not looking for aircraft. It is looking for exactly this. The radar tracks objects from launch through apogee through terminal descent, feeding fire control solutions to the cruiser's Mk-41 vertical launch system before the missile's first stage burns out. The SPY-1 had a solution on every one of the 18 Schedule missiles before the 18th one cleared its launcher. The Chosin began firing SM-3 Block IIA interceptors at a rate of 1 every 4 seconds. The SM-3 Block IIA is 21 feet of interceptor missile that costs $19.8 million per round. It carries no warhead. It kills ballistic missiles by flying into them at a closing speed of roughly 9,800 miles per hour and relying entirely on kinetic energy, a 143-pound guided block of precision metal that finds the target and destroys it by making contact with it at a speed no structure survives. The physics of it are simple. The engineering required to make those physics reliable at those speeds is anything but. The Chosin fired 18 SM-3 interceptors in 72 seconds. 18 Schedule 2 missiles each cost Iran approximately $8 million. The SM-3 Block IIA rounds fired in response cost $19.8 million each. Iran spent $144 million launching missiles. The United States spent $356 million shooting them down. Nobody in the Chosin's Combat Information Center was going to mention that math out loud, but it was in the room. 200 nautical miles to the west, a different problem was developing faster than the Chosin solution could reach it. The IRGC Navy had sortied 34 fast attack craft from Bandar Abbas in 3 separate waves, each wave separated by roughly 20 minutes. The tactic is called swarming, and it is genuinely clever at the level it is designed. Fast attack craft individually are not threats to a carrier. They carry C-704 anti-ship missiles with a range of 35 kilometers and warheads of 155 kilograms, enough to damage a destroyer escort or sink a smaller vessel, but not enough to mission kill a 100,000-ton nuclear carrier. The threat is not individual craft. The threat is that a saturating swarm forces the carrier group's defensive screen to engage small targets at close range, creating gaps in the same air defense envelope being used to track the ballistic missile threat simultaneously. Iran was running 2 attacks at once. The ballistic missile strike from the mountains was designed to suppress the naval air defense. The fast attack swarm was designed to exploit whatever the suppression created. It was a coherent plan built around a genuine understanding of American defensive limitations. The problem with the plan was that it was designed around the carrier group that had been operating in this region 4 years ago. The Ford group had 3 MH-60R Seahawk helicopters airborne and 40 nautical miles ahead of the formation before the first fast attack craft cleared the harbor mouth. The MH-60R carries the AGM-114M Hellfire 2 missile, 8 per aircraft. Each Hellfire costs $115,000 and can hit a moving surface target from 8 kilometers away with a 9-kilogram blast fragmentation warhead. Against a fast attack craft with no armor, this is not a close contest. The Seahawk can also carry the Mark 54 lightweight torpedo if the target is a submarine, and it can carry both simultaneously, which is the kind of flexibility that makes the aircraft genuinely difficult to plan around. The first 3 waves of IRGC fast attack craft encountered the Seahawk screen at approximately 30 nautical miles from the carrier formation. At 0347 local time, the same 7 minutes that the Chosin was tracking and engaging the Sejal salvo, the 3 MH-60RS began engaging the fast attack swarm. 7 minutes. 34 fast attack craft, 24 Hellfire rounds available across 3 aircraft before the helicopters needed to return to the carrier. 14 of the 34 fast attack craft did not survive the first engagement window. 8 turned back. 12 continued toward the carrier formation. The 12 that continued ran into the USS Gettysburg, a Ticonderoga cruiser on the group's western perimeter, which was in the middle of firing its own SM-3 interceptors at the Sejal salvo and simultaneously engaging surface contacts with its Mark 45 5-inch naval gun at a rate that would put 20 rounds per minute on target. The Mark 45 does not cost $115,000 per engagement. It costs roughly $3,000 per round fired. Somewhere in the Gettysburg's Combat Information Center, a fire control officer was managing 2 simultaneous engagement tracks, ballistic missiles inbound from above and fast attack craft incoming from the west, using the same radar picture and overlapping the fire control solutions in a way that the system was specifically designed to handle. The crew had done this in simulation. They had done this in exercises. The system worked in both cases. It worked again here. At 0352 local time, the last of the 18 Sejal 2 ballistic missiles was destroyed at an altitude of 91 kilometers over the Strait of Hormuz.
18 for 18.
No warheads reached terminal phase. The impact field that had been calculated to cover the carrier group's approximate position generated no impacts. The IRGC's ballistic missile force had achieved a perfect record, 0 penetrations. Iran was about to find out why that record belonged to the other team. At 0355, the Ford Group strike package was already 80 nautical miles north. 16 F, 18 Super Hornets and 4 EA, 18G Growlers had launched off the Ford's deck in the 40 minutes before the Sejal salvo hit the SM-3 screen. The strike package had been airborne and holding at a refueling track to the southeast while the defensive engagement resolved. Once the Chosin confirmed intercept of the last Sejal round, the strike package was cleared to proceed. Total holding time, 11 minutes. Iran's best shot bought them 11 minutes of delay. The strike targets were the Sejal launcher sites in the Alborz Mountains, the Bandar Abbas naval base where the fast attack swarm had originated, and the Parchin military complex east of Tehran, which American and Israeli intelligence assessments had for years flagged as a site associated with ballistic missile development. The target list had existed for months. The strike planning had been updated 72 hours earlier when new satellite imagery confirmed the Sejal launcher's firing positions. The package launched 40 minutes before the first Sejal left its tube. The Ford Group did not scramble a response. The Ford Group had been waiting. The Growlers in the package, 4 EA-18G electronic attack aircraft, each one carrying 3 ALQ-249 next-generation jammer pods, pushed ahead of the Super Hornets by 90 seconds and began suppressing Iranian long-range radar coverage along the ingress corridor. The ALQ-249 is a pod the size of a large suitcase that costs roughly $8 million each, produces electronic jamming across a wider frequency range than any previous American airborne system, and is capable of operating autonomously once the target parameters are programmed. The 4 Growlers carried 12 of them. The radar picture available to Iranian Air Defense Command from the Alborz mountain sites to the Bandar Abbas perimeter began degrading at 0356 local time and reached near total blackout by 0359. 3 minutes of degraded radar coverage across the entire northern ingress corridor. At the exact moment 16 Super Hornets were crossing the coast. The Iranian air defense network had been designed with redundancy, multiple overlapping radar systems, independent communication links, surface-to-air missile batteries that could operate autonomously on local acquisition. The network on paper was resilient. The network as actually fielded had one problem that years of international sanctions had made difficult to fix. The communication links between the radar sites and the missile batteries ran through infrastructure that had not been updated since before 2012. The backup links were slower. The autonomous operation protocols on the older batteries required crews to manually switch modes when the primary data feed degraded. Switching modes takes time. In electronic warfare, time is the whole game. The Super Hornets hit their first target, the Sejal launcher site in the mountains north of Damavand, at 0402 local time. 4 GBU-31 Joint Direct Attack munitions, each one a 925 kg GPS-guided bomb delivering a 429 kg warhead to within 5 meters of a programmed coordinate regardless of weather, visibility, or the smoke from the previous bomb. The launcher site that had fired 18 ballistic missiles 22 minutes earlier received 4 of them in a 12-second string. The site ceased to function in the same 12 seconds it took to receive those 4 bombs. 300 nautical miles to the south, the Bandar Abbas naval base was receiving a separate package. 4 Super Hornets carrying GBU-39 small-diameter bombs, a 130 kg precision munition small enough that each aircraft carries 12 of them, were working the fuel depot, the maintenance facilities, and the pier infrastructure where the fast attack craft were based. The GBU-39 costs $40,000 per round. Each aircraft had just delivered 12 of them on 12 separate aim points across the base. The math on reconstituting that base was going to be an uncomfortable conversation in Tehran. At 0411 local time, the second element of the package reached the Parchin complex. The Parchin target required a different weapon. The hardened bunkers at the complex had reinforced concrete roofs assessed at 6 meters thick. A standard GBU-31 would detonate on the roof. The package carried 2 GBU-28 bunker busters, 2,130 kg weapons with a 286 kg penetrating warhead that uses a hardened steel casing to drill through reinforced concrete before the fuse triggers. The GBU-28 was designed in 17 days during the First Gulf War when the Air Force realized it had no weapon capable of hitting hardened Iraqi command bunkers. The design worked then. It worked again at Parchin. 2 bunkers, 2 GBU-28s. Both delivered within the weapon's 3-meter circular area probable. What was inside those bunkers was not confirmed by open sources. What was inside those bunkers also no longer mattered. At 0419, all 20 aircraft in the strike package had released their weapons and returning south toward the carrier. 0 aircraft lost. 0 aircraft damaged by enemy fire. The Iranian air defense network, degraded by growler jamming and physically disrupted by the destruction of the mountain radar sites early in the ingress, had managed to engage the package with 1 Tor M1 battery operating on local acquisition near Tehran. The Tor M1 fired 3 missiles. 1 Super Hornet pilot maneuvered out of the engagement envelope. The other 2 missiles were spoofed by ALE-47 countermeasure dispensers using MJU-53 magnesium flares burning at 2000 degrees Fahrenheit, which is hotter than the F-414 engine exhaust the seeker was chasing. The Tor M1 crew had done everything right. The geometry, the timing, the autonomous operation under degraded communication. It had not been enough, and there was nothing in their training or their equipment that could have made it enough given the electronic environment the Growlers had created before the first bomb fell. At 0435 local time, Iranian state television interrupted its programming. The interruption was not a new victory announcement. The Ford Group had turned back into the wind. The second launch cycle was already taxiing to the catapults. The strike planners below deck were working a new target list assembled from battle damage assessment imagery taken by an RQ-4 Global Hawk that had been orbiting at 60,000 feet above the engagement area throughout the entire operation. Somewhere in Tehran, the victory graphic from 6 hours earlier was still on screen at one of the state channels. Nobody had sent the instruction to pull it. The Ford Group had 9,000 people on board, a nuclear reactor running at full power, and a flight deck that had not stopped moving since before the IRGC's press conference ended. Iran declared total victory, then launched 18 ballistic missiles to confirm it, then watched 18 SM-3 interceptors confirm something else entirely. The scoreboard at 0435 local time read 18 for 18 in Iran's favor. In the other column, if you enjoyed this video, check out our other video on the full history of the USS Gerald R. Ford and what makes it the most capable carrier ever built. Bye for now.